Right, any questions for Saul? B.
Kind of follows on from that last question. Have you ever been caught in a situation like that where it's actually benefited you and you just stood there and gone, yep?
Do you mean benefit?
You know, where you've gone in, say with the 8-foot robot, you had a question of scale, and you had to make them look 8 foot. You know, happy chance, basically.
Can't think of one. I'm sure if I really thought about it, something good happened once. Yeah. No, not really, because you tend to plan things to work, and then everything off the plan is a reason you didn't plan it that way. You know, I think there's possibly something. I mean, I think one of the things that maybe trying to show you in the clips, occasionally when you really run out of time, which you do every single day, you have to think of a clever way of doing something. And actually the sequence with the Doctor and Jenny going through the corridor explaining the plot, I think that's better because we had to very quickly think of a clever way of doing it. So I think that sort of thing happens. In terms of SFX or VFX or monsters or things, no, it's basically pain. Yeah.
Anyone?
How much of the scripts do you have in your head already planned out with shots you're going to use?
Varies from sequence to sequence. Some have to be very worked out. So, for example, once I realised how little of a staircase they give me, I'm pretty much restricted to a shot that goes like that or a shot that goes like that. You know, there's actually no other shot there. But because you shoot very quickly, you have to think on your feet a lot. So doing tons and tons of pre-planning doesn't really help you. So what I tend to do, and I don't advise this as a very good method, but I tend to know the script very, very well before we start shooting, and then actually don't even look at the scenes until about 2 minutes before we shoot. And I don't think it's a very good idea, but in Doctor Who, to me it works. Because it's just too many things that aren't the way you thought they would be, and things like that. So if you really get stuck in a plan, you're only just going to be disappointed.
Do you allow a lot of improvisation?
No, do virtually none. But I mean, they're very strict with the script. You can't really go off the script very much. And I think they have reasonably good reason for that, which is, you know, they've got this whole business of keeping the sort of references consistent and things like that over other episodes and things like that. So they're quite precise with you. But in terms of choreography, Stephen's a very interesting writer. He doesn't write from any visual sense at all. He writes words, and so it means that you're quite open to possibilities of how you direct it. And it also means he has a great time when he actually watches it, because he didn't really come at it with terrible preconceptions. You know, he just goes, wow, so that's what my monster looks like. You know, I think he has a great time. I think it's in a funny way, it's a sort of advantage that. But no, it's mostly made up as you go along. At least it is by me. I can't speak for the others, but it is by me.
Anyone?
Have you ever received a script that you deemed to be bad or poorly written, and then just thought to yourself?
Yes, and there's the other thing you get, which is seriously difficult, is you get the not completed script. So I've certainly done stuff where there isn't a last third, and it's quite terrifying going into the process where it's not really worked out. I mean, from my point of view, I like the script absolutely as tight as possible, as early as possible, but inevitably that doesn't happen. And actually, a lot of the difficulty is to do with that. You don't have either finished script or one that makes sense. And I've certainly none of these episodes that I made, none of them were good enough in the first draft to make. You know, they all had enormous plot holes and things like that. And I think they might still have plot holes. Some of them. But I think it's tough to come out with that many consistent scripts. You know, to make however many 13 or 14 episodes they make in a year and stay on top of it. And I think, you know, Stephen writes 5 episodes, for example. That's just tough. And he writes his Sherlock stuff and things like that. So in the end, so you do spend a lot of time helping them make it coherent, if that's it. Yeah.
Following on from the last question, is there, in any case, as a director, were there any points where you disagreed with Moffat on a creative standpoint? So it's like a little bit which you didn't really want to.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. Quite often in post. Quite often when you're editing it, you have reasonably. You do. I mean, Moffat gets his way. He's the boss, and so that makes it all quite simple. So you just know you're wasting your breath. But it's quite fun to do it, and it's quite fun to be in a room with two Scottish guys shouting at each other. Yeah. I mean, say for example, I was dead against the spiral staircase for all sorts of reasons, some of which are nonsense. I mean, I don't buy this. Why would this? I don't understand. I don't understand the logic of the staircase. To be honest, does it just sit? Does the TARDIS sit just above that square and it's just connected and it's just invisible? And what do the clouds move around? I mean, I know this is a bit literal, but I don't get it. And also, I was slightly worried that every time you cut to one of these star VFX shots, it sort of cost £1,000, and so you end up wasting a hell of a lot of money because you have to do lots and lots of shots. Because basically every VFX shot has an inbuilt cost and then it has cost on top of it. But every time you basically go to a VFX shot, it straight away costs £1,000 and then all the other stuff on top of that. So I came up with I think, was a much better idea, which was, and it was stolen anyway, but I came up with an invisible lift. Clara walks onto this platform, stands somewhere, then gets propelled up into the sky, sort of hair blowing, and then boom, lands, ding, and then gets into the cloud. And firstly, it's faster, and secondly, it's actually cheaper because you don't have to do so many cuts to make it work. And this is quite a good story. I mean, it's not a good story, it's a terrible story, but I discussed this with the producer, and I said, look, we can't afford to do that staircase, it's incredibly expensive. And so I pitched the producer the idea, of the lift. He said, great, let's do the lift, great, fantastic, let's pitch it to Stephen. So we had this meeting with Stephen, and I pitched him the idea. Stephen sort of looked at me, and I looked back at the producer, and he goes, yeah, staircase is a much better idea. And, I'm sure that episode is way over budget, and it was only me trying to protect the license players. But I thought it'd be nicer, but maybe they can use it again some other time. Doesn't make any sense either, incidentally, why the lift as opposed to the stairs. It's not really that logical, but thank you.
There was another one.
If you had the choice of doing another Doctor Who series or a big blockbuster movie like The Avengers, maybe, what would you choose?
Well,
you're in a room full of Doctor Who fans.
no, but I mean, there's pros and cons of each. Everyone I know, and I know a few people who've gone to do these big films, have been completely mangled by the experience. I don't think when you make Avengers Assemble, unless you are somebody with great producing power in Hollywood, do you ever come out happy. You might come out richer, but you're going to get mangled. It's actually quite a good story. I heard a friend of mine, quite a well-known director, was offered Wolverine, and he knew nothing about how to make. He's done big films, but he hasn't done sci-fi stuff. He hasn't done effects stuff. He hasn't done that sort of action. He's completely the wrong guy to do Wolverine, but he has an Oscar. This friend of mine, and he said to his agent, "Why on earth are they offering me Wolverine? Because I obviously know nothing about it." And the agent said, "Look, no, they're not actually offering you Wolverine. They'll make Wolverine. Fox or whoever make Wolverine, they'll be making it. The second unit guy will be directing all of it. The producers will be editing all of it. You'll have no control over any of it. They want to hire you so that when Hugh Jackman goes, he doesn't feel like an idiot. So he's with an Oscar-winning director. He's doing quality material. And that's literally, they said, that's why they want you to do Wolverine. And so it's not the same game. Having said that, I can't even begin to tell you the differential in how much money you earn and how much money you don't earn doing Doctor Who. Doctor Who has not made me rich, let me tell you that for nothing. And I think, in Britain they don't spend terrible amounts of money making television. Say for example, what I earn on Dread compared to what I am in Doctor Who. I am a double in Dread, and I'm not even the main director. You know, it's totally different. It's a totally different order. And but I think the other thing is it's sort of middle ground. It sort of films you have a little more control. At one extreme, you wouldn't have any control over Avengers, and in Doctor Who, you don't actually have that much control, other than the fact that it's shot quickly, so you can squeeze all your ideas in before anyone stops you. But if Moffat wants the stairs and I want the lift, stairs.
That's a good question.
If the opportunity will come up, and anyone kind of miracle will come up to you and be like, do you want to do the third Avengers? Will you say yes?
Well, now?
Yeah.
Yeah. You don't know I did my own from Doctor Who, you know. But I mean, you know, I'm off most of next year doing a second unit on a big film, so that decision's partially been made, you know, not the main unit director. I mean, Doctor Who's really it's not big budget, you know. It's very it's actually quite amazing what you get out of not very much money. The first time I read Dinosaurs in a Spaceship script, there's the scene where they're riding on a Triceratops through the spaceship and chased by robots firing laser beams. And the first thing I said was, we're never going to get that done. You know, that's never going to happen. So let's write something else. I mean, I didn't for a second believe we'd ever actually do that. And true enough, it's all shot in about 6 or 7 hours. I mean, it was hell. But, you know, we got it. But you always get it by the skin of your teeth. It's very, very tough.
Good questions.
Yeah.
Any more? No?
Spend much time rehearsing with the actors before you get to the cameras and the sets, or is it pretty much rehearse and film as you're making it?
Yes, it's pretty much rehearse and film as you make it. But the funny thing is, at the beginning of Series 7, I got Madeline, Arthur and Karen into a room to do a rehearsal of Dinosaurs. And they turned to me and they went, what are we doing? And I said, we're doing a rehearsal. And they go, oh. And I don't think it ever happened on that program. Yeah, they were genuinely shocked that we were actually in the room talking about it.
That's the only time really is the read-through, isn't it?
Yeah, and the read-through is not really. The read-through, I think, is, you know, everyone knows what a read-through is. Where you just get the script, you all sort of act it out sitting around a table. The read-through is very informative, so it is very useful. But I don't think. I think it's more for rewriting bits of the script when you see something works or doesn't work, as opposed to actually modulating performances. Because, I mean, say for example, Matt is pretty spot on in the read-through. Most of the guests aren't, and Karen and Arthur sort of varied a bit. Karen's the most fantastic one though, because you do this scene, even like one of these rather emotional scenes that she's very good at, and you've shot it from this angle, and it comes to shot, and you're talking about something about how she has to change something, and then she goes, so that's what this scene is about, and everyone else goes, oh God. And it's like, you've been shooting for 2 hours, and she goes, now I didn't think it was anything to do with that at all. So again, I think she's quite instinctive, so in some ways too much rehearsal isn't going to get you anywhere. It's in that moment, I think.
Dinosaurs in the Spaceship, one last question for me. It's got everything in it. You've got CGI, animatronics, a spaceship, puppets, everything. Yeah. When you were looking at the script, were you actually thinking, yeah, I'll do it on a beach, I'll do it here, I'll have that and that, all these elements? Were you not just crying in your hands?
No, when I saw that they were actually, because CGI dinosaurs it's just expensive. It's not difficult to do. People riding on CGI dinosaurs is expensive. Basically, with VFX, anything that the VFX integrate real things with the VFX is really tricky and annoying. I mean, you know, the kind of thing is difficult. When something got a decent budget, you make a rig that they sit on that has sort of it's got a mechanism which actually matches how the VFX guys have designed the dinosaur's legs to go, so exactly how the thing goes. And it's quite an expensive thing to build. So what in Doctor Who land you do is the guys who make the animals make a sort of roll-along one, and then the VFX guys make their thing. and then the two things don't marry up at all, and then it costs a hell of a lot of money to make it marry up. And that sort of thing can be it's just expensive and time-consuming, difficult. There's a particular shot in Dinosaurs of the Tyrannosaurus going around the corner, and there's an entirely fake-looking Matt Smith on the dinosaur bouncing up and down. And it has a very strange quality because it's not fake. It's actually a real Matt Smith bouncing up and down. And again, it's one of these weird things. Sometimes it just looks pretend, you know. And have a look at the shot. It's literally, they turn a corner, the robots keep firing the lasers down the corridor, and there's this totally fake-looking Matt Smith.
But it's him.
Totally genuine fake Matt Smith. But yeah, I mean, that one was really tough. I mean, the snowmen we had terrible troubles with. I mean, the actual snowmen monsters, the first ones we had looked like Zippy from Rainbow. His mouths to go, you know, I mean, they were shocking. And it's like filming with an incredibly bad actor, because you do the scene, it's all working fine, you cut to Zippy, as we knew him on set, and the whole crew just kind of go like this, because suddenly you're like, this guy's rubbish. And what we did with that is we shot the whole thing, and then actually the faces are all CG faces put on. Do you remember the Christmas one with the shark? That's actually the face of the snowman is actually the shark's mouth. It's actually reusing that shark VFX to put into the mouth of the.
Saving money as well.
Yeah, no, it's literally that thing of it's very expensive to build a new asset, so you literally steal reuse. I mean, there's what's that TV series with the dinosaurs called? Primeval. There's the people at the mill who make the Doctor Who VFX until recently also did the dinosaurs in Primeval, and there's a vicious rumour that our Tyrannosaurus, or whatever it was a reused VFX element of theirs. Which wouldn't be right, because you'd have to pay them for it, because they own it.
If it was coloured a bit differently, you wouldn't know, would you?
You would think that sort of thing would stop the problem, yeah.
That's no different to Lucasfilm, though, is it? Because they used a lot of the Jurassic Park models in Star Wars, didn't they? So.
Apparently, yeah. No, I mean, again, the VFX have certain build costs which are expensive, and actually once you build the damn thing, what you'll find is that whenever you have, the mill also did the Sinbad's town in the Sky version of Sinbad recently, for the aerial shots, and I think his town has elements of Victorian London from The Name of the Doctor. You know, I think they literally just sort of reuse bits. But again, what to look out for in Doctor Who is, particularly once you get to the later episodes of a series, look for when things reappear. I mean, the Asylum of the Daleks, the asylum that they're in, the columns, I think they got the same interior decorator as the dinosaurs and the dinosaur in the spaceship. I think they look a bit like the same columns upside down. And I think there's various doors people go through in the submarine one that are very similar to the doors that in Trenzalore when the Doctor arrives. They're just amazing coincidence across space and time, particularly towards the later episodes.
Well, that's a game we can all play.
Another reason to watch.
It's not a difficult game.
Am I understanding then you're busy all next year? No more Doctor Who on the horizon for you as yet?
I think I'm busy all next year.
Yeah.
Right. I think we're at a close, unless anybody's got a burning question they want to ask. Saul? Simon? Nicholas?
Well, if there's time, I would love to ask you a question. It's not about Doctor Who. You directed, we haven't talked about it at all, I'm just throwing it away. You directed one of my favourite things that I saw on TV in recent years.
Micromen.
See that? Fantastic. I just wondered, how did that, was that a project that was just presented to you, or was it something that you were involved in from the start?
Involved from the start. To those who haven't seen, Micromen is a comedy starring Martin Freeman and Alexander Armstrong about the advent of home computing in Britain. And you guys have, basically, if you're over 40 and a man, this is just a very close thing to your heart, because you sort of remember, you know, basically, I was working on something, and the producer did a very nerdy but clever thing where she started just looking through Wikipedia for interesting stories. And she discovered that the two guys who ran Acorn Computers and who then made the BBC Micro and Clive Sinclair had worked together, fell out, started their own companies, and then brought each other down, including an actual fight in a pub where they were like it's quite a famous fight, and they literally, two computer boffins beat each other in a pub in Cambridge. And it was a story of such classical elegance and every time you looked into it, it got even more perfect. And I think somebody's uploaded it to YouTube. I think it's maybe the favourite thing I've ever directed. Not for the directing, but it's just the story is such a good story. And I don't know if any of you remember the Sinclair C5. Because basically Clive Sinclair, after his computer thing had all gone to hell, developed this three-wheeled car called the Sinclair C5. It was this little white blob, and it was going to revolutionise transport. And it's utterly the worst thing ever invented. And I mean, it's just extraordinarily awful. And the only thing I knew about making this program was that at the end, I knew Clive would be going off to the sunset in a C5 with Jean-Michel Jarre playing in the soundtrack, and so everything else was worked back from that point. And we shot this thing we got one of these C5s. They retailed for like £200 or something when they were new in 1983, and you can buy them on eBay for the same price now. And at the end, I mean, we shot it in a controlled situation on a runway. And even then, the actor was terrified of being there because it's plastic and awful. Every time you turn, you think it's going to crack. It's awful. And then at the end of the program, the producer said, "You want the C5?" And this is a famous collector's item and things. And you're just like, you just wouldn't want to own one. It's so rubbish that you wouldn't even like knowing that you had this like in your attic. It would sort of annoy you to even own it. But it's a great story of. British achievement followed by massive failure, and very and heartwarming.
I'd love to see the Sinclair C5 in the Doctor Who episode. That would be great.
It's actually almost not good enough. Well, no, but maybe Doctor Who goes to an alternative world where the Sinclair C5 caught on.
That fight in the pub kind of reminds me of that news story about was it the Doctor Who fans and Star Trek fans?
Yeah.
Supposedly having a fight.
It's a great story. Is that true?
I don't think it is actually.
No. Is it true?
Yeah.
It is true.
So we heard it was true, yeah.
Well, one of the nice things in Micromen is we actually spoke to Clive Sinclair and Chris Curry, the two guys who got in the fight, and Chris Curry told us word for word what Clive Sinclair had said. You know, so the fight, you know, it's like you fucking, you know, but whatever he says in the fight is actually word for word true, And Chris Curry would tell us these great stories about getting beaten up in a pub by somebody else as if it was like a good thing to have happened to him. And anyway, we had a great relationship with him until his daughter realised, because Chris Curry was getting played by Martin Freeman, until his daughter realised he was getting played by the loser in The Office. And then it suddenly all went very sour. I thought Martin Freeman was the winner in The Office, but...
he was, eventually.
He was.
He got Dawn.
He got Dawn. Peter Davidson in it. And Michael Keating, who was... No, it's because funny enough, you know Michael Keating is Villa from Blake 7, and as Peter Davidson as the bank manager. And Peter Davidson is very interesting because he got it so right instantly that I don't think I ever spoke to him. Like, he literally came and did it. I was like, great, and then he left. Great, you know, it was perfect. And the guy who was Villa from Blake 7, people have said, oh, that was clever doing a sort of bit of retro sci-fi casting, whatever. I knew I recognised him. I just couldn't remember who the guy was. And we shot with him, and on the way home, the producer said that was, you know, I was like, it was him from Blake 7. I was very excited, but he looked familiar, but older.
I think that's it. Can we thank Saul for that?